moving ever upwards and onwards through the instruction manuals, if you like. And now we come to a really, really important topic, and that's the subject of winning your one positions. There's nothing more distressing or upsetting on the chessboard than sweating blood to work up a winning position and then blowing it. Yet how often does this happen? And at lower levels, of course, it happens more often than it does at the Grandmaster level. To win your one positions is an art. And now I'm going to give you a few tips as to the best way of cementing the win when you've actually worked hard to get it on the board. Well, the first golden rule when you're winning, when you have a winning position, if you like, is to give the opponent as little as possible. Give the opponent absolutely nothing, in fact. I don't mean that you have to shut the game down, because, you know, this is not always possible. We're going to be dealing next about the best way to play when you're actually losing the game. It's the other side of the coin to this particular example. But in general, you should avoid complications as far as possible and avoid risk as far as possible when you've got a superior or even a one game. Do not let the opponent have any chances whatsoever, if you can help it. Against a skilled tactician, against a good player, you're not always going to be able to control the game. But of course, learning how to coordinate the pieces, thinking about your pawn structure, this all ties in with the idea of control of the game. And control of the game is exactly what you're seeking to exert on your opponent when you've got a winning position. In general, you should try and keep the initiative if you can when you've got a winning position. Again, that comes down to control of the game. The opponent's going to be fighting tooth and nail to shake off your grip using any means possible. Again, we'll be discussing that in the next tip. So, control of the game is really important. And the final thing, and this is absolutely crucial, don't relax. Don't assume the game is going to win itself. This is a typical mistake of weaker players. They get a winning position and then they just lay off. Come right off the gas, lay back in their chair and expect the game to win itself. Chess is just not like that. Well, it is if you're playing very weak opponents, but in general, for the most part, you have to assume you're playing really good players in order to get the most out of training or anything in general. So don't assume the game is going to win itself. Now, a typical example of an iron grip in a good position, if not a winning position, was shown in the following Grandmaster game. This game was played in the Khanty-Mansisk Olympiad, which was played in September 2010 between the countries of the Czech Republic and Mexico. The board one game between world-class Grandmaster David Navara and Manuel Leon Hoyos, whose grade is 2579, which is pretty high by any standards. The opening moves are not strictly relevant to our discussion, but I'm going to take you through them. The opening is the Sicilian Dragon. This is one of Black's most respected and dangerous systems against the King's Pawn, especially for advanced players. But in general, it's an opening which I advise young players and beginners to steer clear of. And the main reason is that there is a lot of theory on the Sicilian Dragon that you will have to learn. You have to have an extremely good memory to be able to work out all the complicated variations. And in fact, what we're going to see in this game is Navara unleashing what we call improvement on White's play hitherto in a critical line up to the date of this game, which was on the 25th of September 2010. So very recent in terms of me recording this segment. The Sicilian Dragon in general is a counter-attacking opening. Black is seeking to emphasise the power of the Dragon Bishop all the way down the long diagonal towards the White Queen side. Black is looking to create counter chances on the half-open C-file, and if White were to cast on the Queen side, as he so often does in the Sicilian Dragon, then Black can whip up some quick action against the White King. So this is a very dangerous attacking system. Obviously White has not been satisfied just to sit there and take it over the years, and many strong attacking systems for White have been discovered, and this is the most dangerous one of all, the famous Yugoslav attack. White's pawn on e4 is solidly anchored by the pawn on f3, and in general in this system, White is threatening to try to crush the Black King on the king side with the help of pawn advances such as g4 and h4. White need not play those moves, more often than not does. Okay, Black castles, biting the bullet, and now White plays g4. There are other moves in this position. White can castle on the queen side, or he may play bishop c4. Both of those moves have been extensively played in modern practice, but as I say, that's not really the topic of this conversation. This is about how to win a winning game. And now Leon Hoyos plays a move which is recommended in the books, but it's not a move I like very much. Bishop e6. Yes, we know that this allows white to take the bishop and double black's pawns. This is one reason why I really don't like this system for black. It's the simplest reason. But black is arguing that, yes, he's got double pawns, but because white's played g4, there's a big fat weakness there on the end of the f-file. So opening up the f-file for black's rook on f8, will create counterplay. That is the argument in this line. Which is more important, white's two bishops or the weak f-pawn? Well, we will see. As I say, Navara's about to play a new idea. Black brings his knight into e5, attacking the weak pawn on f3. White defends. Black plays rook c8. Again, this is a very useful move in the dragon. As I say, black can often attack down the c-file, so bringing the rook there is a good idea. Black's also thinking about a move like knight c4. If we argue that white's bishop pair is one of his main trumps, then knight c4 would force white to surrender one of his bishops. But now Navara comes up with a really good move, which is very difficult to see, even for grandmasters, knight b5. You see, just dropping back, the normal focus of white's play in this variation is on the king side. Probably Leon Hoyos was just expecting white to play a move like h4, and then go h5, h takes g6. That is the normal run-of-the-mill play here. But Navara finds a really interesting way of playing the position. Knight to b5. And there are two ideas behind this move. The first idea is an obviously greedy one. White might be threatening to just nab that pawn on a7. Of course, that's going to be a risky pawn grab. But nevertheless, in these computer era days, when taking everything in sight is acceptable, knight takes a7 or bishop takes a7 is a definite idea for white. The second idea is knight d4. And, well, we would see that in typically if black played a6 in this position, the knight comes to d4, queen comes to d7, and now white gets on with the job. h4. Perhaps black will play knight c4, then white will take it off and go h5. Perhaps black will double his rooks here. White could take on g6. He might play c3. This is all very typical play for the dragon, and at the end of this long variation we've got a position where it seems to me black is worse. He's got no real attack on the queen side. He's still got pawn weaknesses in his position, and white's threatening bishop h6, which could create a dangerous attack. So knight b5 definitely gives the Mexican grandmaster unusual problems. And as usual, when confronted with unusual problems in a game of chess and under pressure, Leon Hoyos plays in a mysterious and rather inferior manner. He moves his knight back to d7. White goes f4. Okay, that forces the swap off. And now Navara moves in with an excellent move, e5. He's taking advantage of the fact the pawn on d6 is pinned against the knight on d7. He maybe even threatens just to simply win that pawn with e takes d6. So black must take evasive action. Knight b6. Now it's all about control of the position from white's perspective, not grabbing pawns. So queen d3 again sets up a winning idea of bishop takes b6 when the rook on c4 will be unprotected. Black plays queen d7, intending to answer bishop takes b6 with queen takes b5, which is very unclear. So only now does Navara go in for the pawn grab, knight takes a7. And it's all getting very unclear in this position, as suddenly black finds that his knight is en prise and his rook is en prise. He probably didn't like this position at all, so he now starts thrashing around, trying to complicate. Well, Navara's play from here to the end of the game is exemplary. He does not allow complications. He basically takes out all the tactics. He allows black to fork his queen and rook, queen d4, renewing the pin on the pawn at d6. Black, of course, must take on at d1 to re-establish any sort of material balance. And now Leon Hoyos again tries to shake off the grip by playing g5. But f takes g5 shows white in full control of the tactics. That pawn on d6 is still horribly pinned. Of course, if black plays bishop takes e5 in this position, white goes queen takes e5, and the pawn is pinned. Something similar happens in the game as Leon Hoyos goes rook d8. a4, no doubt planned in advance. This might seem unlikely, but take it from me, world-class grandmasters can see a long way into the position. Bishop takes e5. Let's not forget in this position, black is still a pawn down. Queen e4, centralising. Well, white's ideas include just getting the knight out of jail with knight b5, and maybe just marching the h-pawn up the board. Black plays rook a8. Of course, once again, black is being frustrated by tactics here. If he goes bishop takes h2, then rook h1 is a lethal pin. So rook a8, queen takes e5, black's getting a bit desperate, rook takes a7, and now the simple move b3. Throughout this game, black has been hampered by the pawn on d6 being pinned, and it's a trend which continues all the way through. Now with the position fully under control, white can start to think about outright attack. He can switch plans, and g6, well, forced h6 really to block lines. Now, of course, white's got this towering giant of a passed pawn on g6. Queen c8. Queen e3. This should be an easy win. h5, e5, g5, smashing into the black king's position. Rook f4, g takes h6, king takes h6, and now rook g1. Very good control all the way to the end. Black is bound hand and foot, really. This pawn is threatening to advance all the way up the board to g8. His rook is pinned. He can't really take the h-pawn because his king would then be exposed to the four winds, and Leon Hoyos therefore decided to resign. Good control by Navara all the way through. So just to recap, what is important when you want to win a one position? Okay, well, control of the position is important. If you can, take out the tactics, take out all the complications, play without risk. Try to keep the initiative if you can. The initiative implies control. And finally, and I'm going to stress this once again very strongly, do not assume a one game is going to win itself. You may have to work very hard to win a winning position. Don't relax. Alright, keep these basics in mind, and you should win a lot more positions in future.